What's up, guys, for the third part of my Hyperion review. Now, this third part of the book is probably the most uninteresting part that I have read of the book so far. During this third part, we are on the perspective of Martin Silenus and getting his story. And honestly, it wasn't much of a page turner for me. It took me a good little bit to actually care about what was actually happening in this story. He's the most uninteresting character to me, period. Though, a couple of the things that he did experience throughout his life was interesting. The fact that he was from old Earth. He's that old. To the point where he was in the last days of Earth. And the description of it was pretty interesting. I remember one line saying that... I might be able to find the line, but... might be able to find the line. Oh. That a lot of the poor families, a lot of the poor people in general, left old Earth to pursue other planets. And because of that, the aristocrats, the people high in charge were left behind. That was an interesting concept to me. And the fact that everyone he met was pretty much high class like he was. And also an interesting thing before he actually lived in his life, the line about how his mother got impregnated by his father is very interesting. I'm going to read it out loud just so I can jog my memory of it. Mother didn't have to be impregnated in this barbaric fashion, of course. She could have chosen ex utero fertilization, a male lover with a transplant of daddy's DNA, a clonal surrogate, a gene-spliced virgin birth, you name it. But, as she told me later, she opened her legs to tradition. My guess is that she preferred it that way. That little bit right there was so interesting in terms of world building. The science is to the point where you can use a fake lover, essentially a male prostitute, to impregnate you with the sperm of the person you wanted. That line was honestly pretty crazy to me. It just made the technology in the world of Hyperion much more interesting to me. But we get multiple descriptions of him living life on, not Hyperion, but old Earth. Honestly, I wasn't too interested in it. I don't even remember a lot of it. Though it was interesting, the parallel between him and the Buddha. He even says it himself. Seeing his first poor person, I believe he said 16, was when he first saw a poor person. I'll read this line out. I was 16 standard years old, on my wonder jar, and backpacking through India when I saw a beggar. The Hindu old families kept them around for religious reasons, which is pretty weird. Very interesting. I didn't even... Honestly, I would have to brush up on my Hindu mythology, Hindu culture in general, to find out the reason why the people high above would keep around the poor people of Hinduism. That is a very interesting thing to see. But all I knew at the time was that there was a man in rags, ribs showing, holding out a wicker basket with an ancient credit disc key in it, begging for a touch of my universal card. My friends thought it was hysterical. I threw up. It was in Benares. That might be the best paragraph in the entire part of Martin Silenus' story for me. Like I said, his story just wasn't that interesting to me. The end was pretty interesting, though more so due to the speculation of it. And I'll get to that pretty soon. But so we get to the point where once Earth was being on his last leg, so to speak, he was sent off and put into Fuge. The interesting thing is that because he was in Superfuge so long, he actually essentially went almost brain dead. He got a stroke and lost a lot of his ability to speak. And then he got sent to this specific, I believe, a planet. It might have been just a ship. I can't remember, mostly because I wasn't interested by it. And he had to spend multiple years trying to get his language back, etc., etc. Wrote his first book. Got married, divorced, tried to get better and better at writing, blah, blah. Eventually left his publishing, his publisher, so that he could go to be with King Billy. Now, King Billy is probably one of the funniest characters, and also somewhat interesting. Every single time Martin Selenis describes King Billy, always leaves me with chuckles. It's just it's very funny, just to be plain and simple. But anyways, so he was with King Billy for a few years, and then got sent to Hyperion along with him, because King Billy's dream was to essentially have his own place at Hyperion. And he lived there and got some physical augmentation so that he was better in bed, etc., etc. The most important thing, though, is the theoretical reason as to why the Shrike started to appear. Martin Selenis started to write his novel on Hyperion. The reason being was because he became interested in what the Shrike was in terms of mythological status. As he started to write, people started to die. And not because of some random psychopath or some just happened occurrence. It was due to the Shrike. Him and King Billy watched a video of where a higher established woman and her lover got brutally murdered. The description of her being ripped apart was really crazy. I'll give it to Dan Simmons. He is very good at descriptions. Very good at describing things that are being done. You know what I mean? Describing events, describing the look of a person, describing what is happening to a specific person in terms of physical action. He is very good at describing. So, in terms of people, not in terms of all the other stuff, in my opinion. And so it made that scene in the book much more visceral to me. And I liked it. So, as more and more people were killed, eventually King Billy left with the others to another place on Hyperion. And Martin Selenis stayed with the ones that stayed behind. Eventually got to the point where he was the only one that was left. But weirdly was not killed at all. And it is due to a theory that him and King Billy eventually had. King Billy arrived after all this to essentially condemn Martin Selenis for bringing the Shrike up here. He, and even Martin Selenis himself, thinks that the reason why the Shrike is appearing is because of Martin Selenis writing a Hyperion Cantos on Hyperion. Now, they say this a couple times, and they say it to the point where they full-heartedly believe it. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to believe it as well, or if it's meant to just highlight how crazy Martin Selenis has become because he thinks that he's the reason why the Shrike appeared again. I'm not sure whether or not I'm supposed to believe it full-heartedly. What I think now is no. He is not the reason why the Shrike suddenly appeared. I think it was due to some other reason. But it is an interesting coincidence that when Martin Selenis started writing, the Shrike appeared again. Got a nice description of the Shrike again. Now it's gotten to the point where the descriptions of the Shrike don't really help that much. It's the same descriptions over and over again. The first couple times was really nice, because you would get more and more little tidbits here and there. But now it's gotten to the point of where describing the Shrike kind of doesn't interest me anymore. But seeing what the Shrike does. Seeing what the Shrike acts, seeing what the acts of the Shrike are, do interest me. And the thing that keeps puzzling in my mind is, why is he leaving Martin Selenis alive? Is it due to Kassad's future vision? Seeing the Shrike tree, Tesla tree, what have you, being pierced with whoever the companions are? Maybe Martin Selenis is the one who is planned to be on that tree, on that barbed tree. Who knows? All in all, Martin Selenis' story was the most uninteresting in my opinion. Kassad's is still the best. Father Hoyt's is incredibly interesting as well. But Kassad's is probably still the best story so far that the Pilgrims have said. All of that to say, though, even though I'm at an uninteresting part of the story, I am still very much interested to hear Hetmastein's point of view, to hear the scholar's point of view, to hear the detective's point of view, to hear the consul's point of view. I'm super interested at hearing what those people's reasonings are to appear in Hyperion. Because those four are, except for the detective, I'm not quite as interested in her, but the other three are incredibly interesting to me, and I am very much looking forward to the fourth part of the Hyperion book. And by the way, the third part went all the way to page 231, so you know. So yeah, that is all for that, guys. Sorry that this might be a shorter video. Part 3 wasn't as interesting to me. I might have more to say when it comes to part 4, depending on who and what the story is the Pilgrims are saying. Have a good one, guys. Hope you guys subscribe. Please comment. I would like to hear your views on each of the Pilgrim stories so far. And please, no spoilers, guys. Please, no spoilers. So, have a good one. Like, subscribe, and I will see y'all on part 4 of the Hyperion review.